Okay, so we're talking now about congruent triangles. Again, it's kind of the end goal of this unit. Now, again, congruent means specifically that if we're talking about shapes, they are exactly the same. They have the exact same size and shape. That's what we mean by congruent shapes. They are literally the exact same. Now, kind of the cool thing about triangles is that we can know a little bit of information about the triangles and know for certain that they're going to be the exact same. So, for example, like in construction, triangles are a really big shape that is used in construction. And a lot of times, builders have to see, okay, I need to make the exact same triangle. Rather than check every single little detail and make sure every single little detail is the exact same, they actually only have to check a few things, and then they can know, yep, these triangles are the exact same. Kind of a shortcut. So for example here, the third angles theorem says that if two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another. So if we are told to start with that A and D are congruent, which is what it says here, and then B and E are congruent, which is what it says here, if we only know that, it is going to be guaranteed that C is congruent to F. That's a guarantee. So again, we have these little shortcuts that can help us rather than have to check every little detail to be like, yeah, these triangles are the exact same. We can just know a few things, and then we can be certain that, yep, these triangles are going to be the exact same. And that's basically what this is saying here as well. We know reflexive, symmetric, transitive property. It applies to congruent triangles as well. So let's go ahead and practice a couple things here. Now, we've seen a congruent statement like this before. It's been a while, but this tells us in what order the triangles are congruent. So it's not just, oh, we're just naming the two triangles. Yeah, it's very particular how these are named. So it says name 3 pairs of congruent sides. So how this works is the first 2 letters of the first triangle are congruent to the second 2 letters of the next triangle. So it's actually based entirely on this statement. I don't even need a picture in order to say which sides are congruent. So I'm giving you the first one there. XY is going to be congruent to LM. This is one pair of congruent sides. Now again, I want to kind of point out here that yes, XY and LM are like the same side in each triangle, but that's not what's important. What's important is XY was the first 2 letters here, and LM was the first 2 letters here. So if I'm talking about side YZ, just looking at the congruency statement, side YZ is the last 2 letters. What side is it going to be congruent to over here? MN, last 2 letters, last 2 letters. And again, that comes from the statement itself. Yes, I know that YZ and MN are kind of like the same side, but that's not what matters. It matters that based on the statement here, that tells us what sides are congruent. Now there's one more side, right? We had the first 2, we had the last 2, and then we also actually have the first and last letter. So the last statement here is going to be XZ, so help me out here. If I'm talking about X and Z, what side over here, what 2 letters is it going to be congruent to? Well, X and Z are the first and last, so L and N are the first and last. So I really want to specify that I actually don't even need that picture at all. I determined what sides were congruent based on this statement. So we have to be very careful. If you are writing one of these, it has to line up properly. If XY is congruent to LM, I have to put those letters in the same order. Let's go ahead and try another one here. It says given OPN is congruent to OML. So once again, I'm going to say there is this picture here, but it actually doesn't matter. This is what matters. We need to name 3 pairs of congruent angles now. So same way that here I was saying, well, XY is the first side I can talk about. So XY is congruent to LM because that's the first two letters, the second two letters. Now that we're talking about angles, it lines up the same way. So I'm going to give you the first one, maybe the first two, and then we'll see if we're catching on. So because they list angle O first, angle O has to be congruent to, this is going to sound kind of weird, but it's because of the picture, angle O, right? They're putting O first because they're saying these angles are the same. Those have to be listed in the correct order. So same thing here. I'm not even looking at the picture. Angle P is the next angle. Based off of the statement, what angle is it going to be congruent to over here? Angle M. Second letter, second letter. It has to, right? We have to write this properly so we're communicating properly in math. We have to know what we're talking about. So what is the last one? We said O congruent to O, P congruent to the M. What's the last pair of angles that are going to be congruent to each other? It's going to be N and L. So once more, I'm going to say it again. I'm not even looking at the picture at all, though I could figure out some things from this picture. This is a common picture we'll look at later, but I wasn't even looking here. I was just looking off this statement for matching angles and matching sides. So put that all together in this question. We are told that ABC is congruent to triangle TUV. Now again, be very careful here. This statement tells me, aside from the picture, whatever the picture looks like, it doesn't matter. A and T are congruent angles. B and U are congruent angles, right? It tells me that BC, side length, is congruent to UV because they match, right? So I want to see if you can fill this out. I'm going to give you a little hint here. If it's a congruent symbol, let's see, actually, I want you to do these three, and we'll start there. So these three say congruent symbol, so your answer is just going to be the letter name. So based on this statement, angle A is congruent to what? Angle T is congruent to what? Angle B is congruent to what? Just the letter. Go ahead and give that a shot just based on this statement. Well, A is the first letter and T is the first letter. So, hey, actually that gives us the first two. If A is congruent to T, then hey, T is congruent to A. Then we have B congruent to, well, B is the second letter, so that's angle U. Again, not even looking at the picture, just looking at the statement. Now, the difference between this question here and this one is that this was just saying, hey, what angle is it congruent to? Meaning the angle name. Here, this says the measure of angle A equals. Now our answer is going to be a number. So we want to know the actual number for angle A. And here's how we can know that. Let me see, I want to do this actually. I might do this one in class. Actually, we'll come back to the rest of this in class. We'll pause here on this one. The rest of these I do want to talk about with you guys in class. And I think, actually, to sum up, yeah. So we'll finish the rest of these ones in class. To sum up this video, I want you to try example 4 and example 5. It is just, again, putting together, based on this statement, what do we know YZ is congruent to? Based on this statement, what do we know SQ is congruent to? So once more, try 4 and 5, and that'll be the end of your Edpuzzle for today. Okay, well, what I need to do is find where YZ is in the statement, and YZ is right here. So it's congruent to the matching letters on the other triangle, so that's BC. YZ is the last two letters, BC is the last two letters, guaranteed those sides are going to be the same, right? That's what congruent means. So same thing over here. I'm looking for S and Q. Now, Q comes first and S is second, but that doesn't matter, yeah, because we know we can flip-flop SQ and QS. So that means that L and N are the congruent sides. And again, like we said, we've been saying, this is so important, guys, over and over again and over again. You guys will ignore this and only look at the picture, and in fact, I'd rather you look at that first, ignore the picture. Do not ignore this statement. It tells you everything you need to know for these problems. So in class, we'll finish this up. Hopefully this gives you a good idea of where to go from here. And we can keep working with the harder stuff.